President, I would say to Senator Blumenthal, absolutely yes, and to Senator Graham also yes, and thank you. Let me just give a quick overview as my part of this colloquy as to where we are. This really began with the Munich Security Conference, which Senator Graham and I led this year, the so-called McCain-Codell. And when we heard about the imminent invasion, we both became very ardent that we needed to get after Russia's oligarchs. First, because it was turning the oligarchs against Yanukovych that freed up Ukraine. And second, because these oligarchs in Russia are part and parcel of the way in which Putin has manipulated his country and accreted enormous hidden wealth to himself. So we knew that the oligarchs needed to be a target. We talked about it so relentlessly that whenever Secretary of State Blinken saw us coming, he would say, I know, oligarchs, I get it. Afterwards, the president came back and he took the Treasury's asset forfeiture section and the State Department's asset forfeiture section and the Department of Justice's asset forfeiture section and pulled them together into what he is calling the KleptoCapture initiative. And that is a good thing that the president did. In this bill, there is money for it. We give $60 million to that enterprise, and we give another $67 million to the enterprise, and another $30 million to FinCEN, which is the group within Treasury that tracks dirty money. So that's about $100 million to support the KleptoCapture operation. What they still need is authorities. And that's what our bill would give them. When we got back, Senator Graham, Senator Wicker, Senator Blumenthal, and myself drafted this bill. And a version of it has been passed in the House thanks to the leadership of Representative Tom Malinowski. And after that bill was filed, the Biden administration got together and they gave technical assistance to us from the Department of Justice as to what it was that they actually need to be more effective at going after these oligarchs, to seize, to sell, and to send to Ukraine the proceeds. So that is where we are right now. And one of the things that we need is to speed up the process. It can take forever to go through the process. We need to couch this process in the national security authorities of the president as much as possible, because this is primarily a national security issue. We need to speed up the process so that, for instance, you don't have to prove who the true beneficial owner is before you seize the yacht. You can go on intelligence reports. You can go on whistleblowers. And by the way, we want to reward whistleblowers. You remember the Ukrainian who sunk his boss's yacht and he got arrested because he'd pulled the plug out of the yacht and sunk it? I'd rather have that guy come to the Department of Justice and say, I can tell you all about who owns this yacht. You don't have to worry about going through the Cypriot bank account, the Cayman Islands Shell Corporation, the Dakota Trust, wherever else this has been hidden. I can tell you that's the guy, and be able to act based on that, and have the authority to have the action, what's called in rem by lawyers. You don't have to find the defendant. This is United States versus motor, vessel, whatever it's called, Scheherazade. And you give public notice and you invite the world to come and make whoever has a claim to that yacht to show that it's theirs and that it shouldn't be condemned, sold, and the proceeds go to Ukraine. Which is an interesting predicament for the oligarch who owns it, but has pretended he does not, who has hidden behind all these shells. He now has to come forward and say, actually, I own that yacht. Gotcha. Game over. Or he has to put in some phony to come and say, hey, I actually own that yacht. I may be a cellist, but I'm a billionaire cellist who happens to own that yacht. And we get to say, in a court of law, prove it. Let's have some real discovery. Let's have some testimony under oath. If this is your yacht, God bless you, you can have it. Prove it. We dare you. I think what's going to happen is a lot of these claims are going to be forfeit because they are in fact crooked. And we have every right and every need to go after these assets because Putin's attack on Ukraine is supported, aided, abetted, and given aid and comfort to by this retinue of slippery oligarchs around him who've protected him. You saw 29 of them showing up in that big office of his to have the little talk with him about how this was all going. We know who they are, and we know what their role is, and they are aiding and abetting and giving aid and comfort to an enemy of our ally Ukraine, as Senator Graham has pointed out, at the fulcrum in the world of our battle for freedom right now. If we can't act on this, shame on us. So we are going to continue. We are going to continue in bipartisan fashion. We're going to take our bill and we're going to add on to it the technical language from the Department of Justice that will specify the authorities that they need. And we're going to find a way to get this passed. If we can't do it by unanimous consent, which I hope we can, then perhaps on the NDA or some other must-pass piece of legislation. But this must be done. And if, to the Senator Blumenthal's question, will this make a difference? Some of these yachts cost $500 million. And there are dozens of them floating around. This is real money. And that's before you get to the fancy paintings. And before you get to the mansions in London. And before you get to the villas on the coast of Spain. We need to make it very expensive to be an oligarch supporting Putin. And we need to take the filthy pelf, the lucre that they stole from their country and put it to the benefit of the Ukrainian people. So I am delighted that Senator Wicker was an initial co-sponsor of this bill. I'm delighted that Senator Graham was an initial co-sponsor and Senator Blumenthal. And I'll close by saying that, you know, this Munich security delegation that we do every year has made a big difference on several occasions because we get together in bipartisan fashion. We're presented with real immediate problems in the world that we face when we go to that conference, and we craft bipartisan solutions in real time there, and then we come back and deploy them. And that's what was done here. We are going to see this through. We are going to get this right. Thank you, Senator Graham.
Jill, for a quick question and a comment.
Gladly.
Okay. Number one, Senator Whitehouse has been talking about this 3 years that I know of. Long before Putin invaded Ukraine, when we were in charge of the Judiciary Committee, we had several hearings about kleptocracy, about the ill-gotten gain of people stealing money from their country, but particularly in Russia. So I want to thank you for understanding this issue better than anybody I know and been talking about it for years. Now we got a moment here. And to my colleagues over here, this is a moment in world history. This is not about, I don't like this part of the bill, I don't like that part of the bill. It's about you're either going to help Ukraine or not, imperfectly so. Whatever imperfections in this bill exist, the worst possible outcome is to say no to the people of Ukraine because it's not exactly the way you would have done it. Now, if you want to say no to the people of Ukraine because you don't care about what happens in Ukraine, that's a different conversation. Please come down here and say that. If you believe that the outcome in Ukraine has no effect on the national security interests of the United States, if you believe that Putin will stop after the Ukraine and China's not watching, come down here and say it. The reason nobody will do that, I doubt, is because you'd be crazy. But you can say it. The floor is yours. Come down here and make the argument that Ukraine is not connected to world events and that Putin would be satisfied with dismembering that country and stop. He's not. You know, Hitler wrote a book. Somebody should have read it. This guy gave a speech, and for 20 years has been acting on that speech. So the people around him, the oligarchs, and Senator Whitehouse is the oligarch's worst nightmare, have been living large off the system created in Russia where everybody gets a piece of the action except the Russian people. We've got a chance where the world is galvanized And Attorney General Garland, who I've been working with on this, who's been very good, needs some changes in the law to make this more effective. About seizing yachts, you got to have a reasonable belief that the yacht is part of a criminal enterprise, ill-gotten gain. You seize the yacht and you ask people to come forward to contest your assertion. If they don't, then it proves all you need to know. If they got a good counterclaim, they win in court. But right now, you've got this game where you got to find a specific person, which is crazy. Seize the yacht if there's reasonable evidence as part of one of these enterprises. This bill that we're talking about would do that. And why it didn't get in the package, I don't know. But I want to ask Senator Whitehouse one final question. How much money do you think could be gathered up if we unleashed law enforcement throughout the world to go after these oligarchs? And what would be the signal we would be sending throughout the world if we actually did this? Would it make the world a better place? What's your view?
The oligarchs working with and for Vladimir Putin have stolen almost all of the wealth of Russia. These are extremely wealthy individuals. If you can afford a $500 million yacht, you've got money to burn. And that's not your only asset. That's just your yacht. And you got all the other stuff, the villas and the mansions and the artworks and the jets and all of it. The number's obviously in the tens of billions of dollars. When you consider that we're appropriating $40 billion, I think it's a fair bet that we could do half again, just from these oligarchs. And to have that money go to Ukraine's relief, to its victory, and to its rebuilding would be a very, very good use. And at the same time, it would provide the strategic feature that it would start turning these greedy oligarchs against Putin, because we're going to keep coming after them until this is over. And it would disable his apparatus of control over Russia, which is run through being basically a gang of thieves who all allow each other to loot their country. I'm reminded of Senator Graham's great friend, Senator McCain, who used to describe Russia as a gas station run by gangsters with an army. Well, this turns the gangsters against each other, in addition to taking ill-gotten gains and turning them to a valuable and proper use. And the message it sends is, if you're a crooked oligarch who will support a dictator, a tyrant, who will go into another country and shell its schools, send cruise missiles into its apartment buildings, target artillery at its hospitals, you're not going to get away with that easily. And it sends a signal through that to the entire world of kleptocracy, which extends beyond Russia, that your days of thievery are numbered. We are going to have the resources to put rule of law back in charge.
Just to wrap this up, Mr. President, I believe that there were a vote tomorrow designating Russia as a state-sponsored terrorism, we'd get 90 votes in the United States Senate. I'll ask Senator Whitehouse to comment on that. I think if we could take his idea, this kleptocracy regime, and embolden the Department of Justice and others to make it easier to go after these assets, if we had a vote on that concept, we'd get 90 votes. So what's frustrating is that in the desire to get aid and bullets and help into the Ukraine, we left out two provisions, state sponsor of terrorism, provisions to go after the ill-gotten gain of the Russian oligarchs and plowed into Ukraine to help them. But what I want you to know is that the process did not accommodate these two provisions. But as you can tell from this discussion, we're not going to stop. To my colleagues in this body, we're not going to stop. Everybody's going to stand up one way or the other here pretty soon. I've talked to the Speaker of the House. She's very sympathetic to the idea about Russia being a state sponsor of terrorism. I'm talk to Kevin McCarthy. I think the bipartisanship here exists in the House. You could see it. So just finally, Senator Whitehouse, can you assure the people of Ukraine? Can you assure the oligarchs? Can you assure Putin that we're not going to stop?
I can indeed, Senator Graham, I can indeed. And I thank you for your persistent effort on this, and I thank our colleagues in the House who've been very persistent on this, none more than Congressman Malinowski of New Jersey. Thank you.